Hi, my name is Jennifer DeMarco, and this is Class 14, the second class in the fourth section of the Forge It web series workshop. Today we're going to be talking to Brianne DeMarco, who is the editor of Epic Heroes, the series we've been talking so much about. I thought that perhaps you guys would like to see a kind of question and answer period with someone who has worked in post-production, because, and pardon me for saying this, Brianne, but your editor is one of your most important tools. Yes, they're a crew member, but you know what? They're not a crew member you have to deal with on every day of the shoot. As a matter of fact, your editor can be a completely freelance position. You can hire someone to come in just to edit. And either the director will work one-on-one with them or the writer will work one-on-one with them. If you have a writer-director, super. If you're wearing both hats, you can work with the editor. But the editor's work is encapsulated. It's isolated. It happens after all the shooting is done. The only thing that happens after the editing process is the finished footage is sent to the composer, and the composer then watches it and lays in the tracks. But actually, usually even then, the editor will come in behind, tweak a little bit, and things like this. So let's talk with Brianne today about what it is to edit on a low or no budget web series. Hi Brianne, and thanks for agreeing to do this with us today.
Hi.
So talk to me about what kind of software you use.
I work on Ghost Sniffers and also more recently Jericho House. And we've been using Power Director because it doesn't have all of the extra stuff that After Effects has. And what we found is that working with more of a base program worked a lot better because everything was very straightforward, but it could still do all of the cool transitions and effects and closed captioning and everything that we needed.
Oh no, we haven't talked about closed captioning. We have covered transitions, and we even gave some examples of those. You guys saw what transitions can and can't do. Now, closed captioning means being able to turn on the running text at the bottom of the screen. This is for people who are hearing impaired, or if your sound isn't incredibly clear, or you have a character who doesn't speak incredibly clearly, this can help your viewers follow along. So Power Director does allow you to do that.
Absolutely.
And have you experienced a lot of crashes and glitches with Power Director? Tell us what to expect a standard use of Power Director. What problems might we run into?
What I found is that the more that I worked in Power Director, the more episodes, especially on Ghost Sniffers, that we worked on, we ran into some glitches. And what it was is that the temp files were getting stored and they were filling up the hard drive. And what really helped is just uninstalling Power Director, reinstalling it. It takes like 20-30 minutes and you're good to go again. Your project files still work. It's just like if you have a publisher file, even if you reinstall the program, the publisher file is all the same. So we did that. The only other thing that we ran into was with the stock footage. We found that we need to use an external converter. I use Converter Lite, and it's free. You just download it onto your computer. It works in video, audio. You can code video to run on your iPad, whatever you want to do. And once we converted that, it kind of reassembled the file, and then Power Director didn't have any problems with it.
Okay, now we have talked about drawing on stock footage websites, so that's a very important fact. And again, this is the kind of thing that your editor figures out for you. That's why it's important. Don't try to handle all of this by yourself, because that's something I didn't even know that Brianne is dealing with every time I hand her a piece of stock footage. She probably groans as soon as I leave the room. Do you groan as soon as I leave the room?
A little bit.
There you go. But you see, that's important to know because it was a fix and Brianne found it. That's what your editor does for you. And again, if you're going to try to wear that hat, then you've got to troubleshoot and figure that stuff out yourself. Okay, so going back to Power Director, we've talked a lot about transitions, and I even showed the students some example of transitions. You just mentioned Jericho House, which is an adult film, and I know that it's rated R, or expecting an R rating, so I can't particularly tell the students to go watch the extended theatrical trailer or go watch the film, but I can tell them to go and watch the universe introduction that can be found at jerichohouse.blueforgeproductions.com. That piece of video, that video uses a lot of transitions. We've talked about that transitions can sometimes come across as hokey. Why did you guys choose to use transitions in an adult film? What do transitions bring to a project? Anything? Do you recommend using them?
I found that it worked for a universe video because you're trying to relay a lot of information. And so it's really, really audio heavy, not in terms of music, but in terms of narration. And we tried to keep it engaging, and we used a lot of stock footage, we used some of our own footage, and adding in the transitions really kept it engaging, so your eyes are watching, it's not just your ears.
Now, on television right now, either in rerun or live, new broadcasts, Big Bang Theory and That 70s Show, they use transitions between scenes. Do you feel that they can do that simply because they're comedy? Do you think that transitions can ever be used for a serious project, a web series, something like that?
I think that there are particular transitions that can be used. One that I've seen used all across the board, whether it's horror or drama or comedy, is just a basic fade. And it's usually not between like each shot, it's usually like at the end of a big scene, it'll fade. One that I've seen really used powerfully is at the end of a movie, something will fade to white. And that has been, I can't recall off the top of my head which, I've seen it in a couple movies, but I don't remember which ones they were. But it was really, really powerful. And so I liked that. There's some other transitions that you can use. Power Director has a really good library of transitions. And it really, you have to look at it and look at your project and take the time, go through all the transitions every time you want one and find the perfect one.
And what format, whether you're using whatever software you're using, what format do you want to save your final file, produce your final file as?
You have to do it as an MP4. The reason you want to do that is because everything right now is HD. Every other file type is not HD. It's just standard definition, which means if someone tries to watch it on their HD TV, on their computer that can play HD, it's going to look grainy, it's going to look fuzzy. It's kind of like the difference between watching a VHS tape and watching a DVD.
Wow, okay, so a huge difference.
Yeah, there's a really big difference. And the other thing that's really cool about MP4 is it has a higher compression rate, which means that your final video will be a smaller file size than if you did like an AVI.
Okay, all right.
So you could go from having an AVI file that is 5 gigabytes, which is pretty big, to if you had compressed it using the MP4, it would be 2 gigabytes maybe not even that much.
So we are still talking about relatively large files.
Yes.
Yeah, so this isn't going to be something that you can just save to I don't know, do floppies exist anymore? It isn't something you can just save easily. You have to back them up on either a tetrabyte drive or, and let's ask Brianne. Brianne, how many gigabytes are in a tetrabyte?
1,000.
There we go, so it is 1,000. So, and the tetrabyte drive that we recently added to our tools is a 2 terabyte drive?
I believe so.
So again, even though that was several $100s, as you can see right from Brianne, these are going to be large files. Both your raw footage, 16 to 25 gigabytes per 30-minute episode, and also just the final file alone.
The last time that we were working in Power Director, we were working on the Jericho House trailer, and with the raw footage, when I was adding it into the program, it was like 50 gigs of raw footage, even though the file, once we had produced it, was less than 1 gig. But just having all of your original raw footage, you want to be able to keep that, and you're going to fill up a 200 gigabyte hard drive in
just like that.
2 episodes,
right?
And it's full. And then you start saving on your machine, and let me tell you, when you start saving on your machine will fill up and Power Director will stop working.
So now you've heard it from 2 different people. It is, 1, important to keep that raw footage, and 2, it is important not to keep it on the machine you're going to be doing your editing with. Now, we talked about the HD Hero 2, which is an action footage-oriented HD camera that has multiple sporting mounts and can actually shoot both panorama and in 3D, underwater, things like that. Now, it does not have a zoom feature. Can you indeed do zooms, pans, and that kind of thing in post-production software?
You can. Doing the pans is a little bit more complicated. I'm not sure, because I haven't worked in After Effects, if it's easier in that program. In Power Director, it's definitely possible, but it's a lot more manipulating the footage. Zooms are really straightforward. Zoom out, I have not been able to figure out how to do it. There is a zoom out feature, but what it does is it starts with your whole footage, and it zooms out on that, so you get this black border around it,
Mm.
which I guess would work if you're making like a fan video for Justin Bieber, but if you're trying to do something serious, that's not really a zoom out. And I've tried dragging the footage and making it bigger than the screen that will show, and try to zoom out from there. It does the same thing. It puts a black box around it.
Okay, but a zoom in.
But zoom in, we can absolutely do, and we've actually used that recently, and it's really, really easy. And the only thing that you want to make sure is you want to make sure you don't zoom in too far, because once you start zooming in too far, it's going to get kind of fuzzy, kind of grainy, and that's not the kind of quality that you're going to want for your web series.
Okay. Now, you talking about these zooms and that you recently used one reminded me of, in an episode of Epic Heroes, we had one character, Spark, shown in a Skype window on the screen, and that footage was very washed out. I was very displeased with it, but we've recently learned another way to capture things on screen, that if we ever did that again, we would use this other piece of program. Would you talk to folks about that program? Because actually that wasn't on our list, and it might be something you find that you're going to want to pick up.
Yeah, that program is Cam Studio. It's an open source software, so anyone can download it. It's free. They're constantly updating it. They have a huge team that works on it, and it's really great. The only thing that you have to deal with that is you have to find a tutorial, a YouTube. I know we found a really good one that shows you how to capture it closer to HD, so the frame rate is really high, just like a real camera. As long as you can do that, then you can use the program just as much as you can use a real camera. And what it does is it's basically the video version of a screen capture. So instead of, like when you hit print screen, it captures one image. When you use Cam Studio, it actually records your screen and what's happening. And that would have been really helpful for the scene with Spark.
Yes.
And also in episode 6, we had the Forge in like the game world.
In the 16-bit world.
Yeah, where she's in the 16-bit world. And that, what you end up seeing when you try to record with a camera, which is what we did, is you see these like really wavy lines.
Yeah.
And there's no way to make those disappear unless you unfocus a little bit. And then your quality, again, it's not good. And you don't want it blown up on a, 52-inch HD TV.
Right.
Yeah, it's good for the web.
So you
It's fine
need
for the web.
Cam Studio and the lossless codec
Yeah.
device. And that then installs, you make sure you select that to shoot in HD.
Yeah.
Right, I do remember this. I hadn't even thought of the 16-bit Forge world in Epic Heroes. Episode 6, that too would have worked great for that. And then of course, with Cam Studio, you can't zoom, but as Brianne has just confirmed, you can zoom in post-production. Brianne, is there anything else that you would like to share with our students who are about to embark upon editing projects of their own for the first time?
The only thing I can really add to is try to keep your calm. You're going to run into frustrations. You may end up screaming, you may end up crying, and it's okay. Just try to, go outside, take 5 minutes, go for a walk, play on your iPad, whatever you do to calm down. Kind of try to let it go, and then go back to it. Because whatever you're going to run into, you're going to find the solution. Whether it takes 5 minutes, whether it takes 3 hours, whether it takes 4 days.
And Google is your friend.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for talking with us
You're
today.
welcome.
And you guys, if Brianne can do it, and Brianne, I'm sorry, how many years of college did you have to learn how to professionally edit film and a web series?
None.
There you go. If Brianne can do it and feel confident about it, then so can you. And you're going to make a great web series. This ends class 14. Let's continue. Let's continue with class 15 in just a few days.